I was looking at. I found actually the greatest source to discover various things about you was the Daily Mail over the years, and
Right.
I was looking at one of the things you'd said. You said one one of the greatest lessons from life that you've learned is always to treat people with dignity. And I just thought that was quite an interesting thing, and I just wondered whether you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Seems pretty obvious, really, in some ways, but it's sometimes very difficult, isn't it? My mother-in-law, when she had two suitors after the war, one was my father-in-law. I'm very pleased to say that he got the nod, and her other suitor was who, in a sort of courtly post-war way that people used to do their courting and go out to dinner and things, and he got the boot in favour of my father-in-law, and he got the boot because he was rude to waiters. And I just think that's a pretty good yardstick for anybody, actually, and how you treat people who have no hold over you. You're not in any way beholden to them and their good opinion, and your advancement isn't. They got no power over that. And so, how you treat people who are powerless in your company is a good sign of how you are and what your values are. And so in my business, I mean, you have runners. I've been at the bottom of the heap. I mean, I'm still at the bottom of the heap in many ways. But when I was at the National and walking on and feeling miserable, and I was in St. Joan. I had one line in St. Joan for many months, and that line was "Halt, who goes there?" And that's the only acting I was able to do for several months. So I was feeling really miserable. And then I was aware, and you were treated by certain members of the management in a way which I resolved never to behave to people if ever I got into that situation. Treating people with dignity should be part of it. And if you don't, it says more about you than it does about anything else. It just means that you've got some hang up or other, or you've got an opinion about yourself which probably isn't shared by everybody.
Yes. Well, I mean, something else I was particularly struck by was how, I mean, speaking of humility being a key Benedictine value, something I picked up on what you said was, it's all about the audience. It's not about the actor. And it's all about the acting. I was particularly struck by that. I mean, could you speak into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a completely fashionable opinion, I have to say. And in art generally, writing, painting, a lot of branches of the arts, embodiment is the key, the buzzword. And embodiment means that essentially you're writing, you're expressing yourself. Of course you are. Everybody is in any artistic expression, but it's actually the subject matter is about you, and to some extent that's great. If you're writing an autobiography, you've got license to sort of talk about yourself. But something like acting is and this isn't a popular view, because people like to say that they are, and this isn't just new. I mean, I've been doing some research recently about for a magazine, and Noel Coward was bleating on about how actors have to didn't use the word embody in the current phrase, but he said had to feel it every time. He said you can't feel it if you're doing 8 shows a week. You can't actually feel it. It's actually, I'm getting off the point really. But what I mean is that when you go on stage, that people haven't come to see you. They haven't come to see a performance. They've come to see a play, and I think that a performer, and I say this isn't necessarily the fashionable view, but the audience's ticket is a contract between the author and the audience. And in one sense, the actor is irrelevant, but the acting is everything. And your job as a performer is to take what the author intended land it with the audience, color it in a way which you would color it as a performer, and any other performer would color it differently, but that's what you're bringing to it. But that's all that is what you're doing. And it's crucial to get the language across, and to get the mood across, and get the emotion or the humor across into the audience. But ultimately, you yourself are irrelevant.
And how would you stop the fame getting to your head? I mean, outside, I mean, obviously when you're in the moment, but outside of the theatre or the film set, I mean, how does that work for you?
Well, you cut off very quickly. I mean, it's of course for things you've got a show in your head, and you've got a process in your head, and that's all going on, and you're working on it, and it can affect you, and it can affect your mood, and affect how you are with people. But at the end of a take, well, I find that if you're filming something, at the end of a take, the room comes back. You've got say you and I are doing a scene, and we've got a camera over there, we've got a lighting person fiddling under the lights, you've got the sound people with boom mics hanging in over you, and the rest of that. You've got to cut all that out. You've got to remove yourself from that, and it's just you and me talking, as far as we're concerned. Of course, and then technically, of course, we're both aware that you've got to position ourselves for the camera in a certain way and walk and hit that spot. So there's a technical side of it, but essentially we're in that conversation, and then as soon as the director calls cut, then the room comes back and everybody's involved, and it's not you anymore. It's not that character anymore. It's not you. It isn't about you. It isn't about. So everybody's doing their job, including you. During the filming, you're not aware of anybody else doing their job apart from us two. And so likewise, when you finish a day's work or a show, it's finished. It's not. You're not that anymore. And that's the danger of involvement, is that you think that you're permanently on stage. You're always that everything is about you, the character that you're playing. How can you shape? People sort of say, how can you go from one show to another? And don't you get? You don't. You have to. You strike it out, because it's not relevant anymore. You've done it, and you move on. That's it. And because if you don't think the show's about you, then it's much. You can do that much more readily. I always think of two numbers before I go on stage. I think of 30 and 20. Because you're standing in the wings and you hear the audience buzzing away, and there's danger. 3 or 4 months, 5 months, 6 months into a run, and there's a danger of thinking, oh God, here we go again, like that. And I always think of 30 and 20, which is you can't assume that just because you walk on stage that the audience are going to be listening to what you're saying, and so you have to reckon that 30 and 20. You have to reckon that on any given night in the theatre, 30% of the audience aren't entirely sure they want to be there. So when you walk on, you've got to go and get them first. Then they've got babysitting problems, and they've been brought by a friend, or they're on some corporate night, and they're thinking, oh gosh, why do we have to go through this? So you've got to welcome them in. You've got to sort of say, right, okay, I don't assume that anything I'm saying is going to land with you, but here we go, come on in. And then 20 is that 20% of the audience during the show at any one time might be asleep. So you've got to go and get them as well. And some of the 30 might be in the 20, so it's not a strict 50-50 split. But it's just a question of just being mindful of Rosette, and just saying, come on, we're all in this together. We all know it's fake. We're going to suspend disbelief for the next hour and a half, and we'll all join in together. And then when it's finished, off we go. And that's it. That's finished. And it's not me anymore.
Thank you so much for giving your time.
My pleasure.
I know the students will really appreciate it.